the problem. A person learns Chassidus. Does it change him? I mean, that's the issue that we talked about on Monday, and the week before also we more or less had the same discussion. Last week, Thursday, was Chassidus, so it was last week, Monday, and then this week, Monday, basically a two Fabrengens. So, here's what's going to happen, people. We're learning the Maimed. In other words, Hasta Kasha, get the tape. You understand what I'm saying? And not like the tape is going to answer the question. It's simply going to observe that we're appreciating the question. But the Rebbe is saying that you and I, we're not Yankov Avinu, should learn Chassidus, and the Chassidus is going to lift us up from the top. There's going to be a birur, there's going to be a correction that happens in us by learning Chassidus, even though we're not fighting. Now, the Rebbe is not saying that's all you got to do. Everybody has to do a skafi. If you don't do a skafi, you fail as a person. A person doesn't work on himself. A person doesn't work on his midas. A person doesn't work on his bad habits. A person doesn't work on his or her, all the things that limit us. Because, basically it's Yetzer Hara, Nefesh Habamis, it's life. You have to fight. You have to help yourself become a mention of Yitro Avoida. But there is an inyan that Chassidus lifts up. Now, by Yankov Avinu, that was his whole life. By you and me, it's Teira Milashon Ira. Since the story of Yankov Avinu is written in the Chumash, it's a lesson for us as well. And that's what we're going to be learning. Okay, we're holding where? Does anybody need a copy of the Maimon? I brought the extra copies. We're holding on page Kuf Tzaddik. Don't be embarrassed. Come and get it if you need it, please. Kuf Tzaddik Hey, Sif Ches. Okay, put on your seatbelt to put your finger on the place because we're learning today. You want to say something?
Yeah, I feel like it even strengthened my question on the Maimon even more. That if we're meant to be doing the Avaida, like we learn Chassidus and Achar Avaida like Yaakov, but as you were saying, it doesn't just change us. Like we have to do our Avaida, we have to work on our midas. So but the Rebbe was saying it does uplift us. So it changes us in a certain aspect.
Yeah, you have to both. Yeah.
So someone that learns Chassidus but doesn't work on their midas, they do automatically change, but not completely. Like their midas don't change.
I can't speak for everybody. I can speak only for myself. You have to understand, I love learning Chassidus. I'm not doing it for the Eibishter, you understand? But I learn it like Gemara, it's for the Eibishter. I love learning Chassidus. I enjoy it. It gives me pleasure. For whatever reason, I understand it. A lot of people say they don't understand it. Hashem gave me this personality. A Gemara is hard for me. A Taisvis is hard for me. It's not like I don't learn. But for me to learn Gemara, I have to make myself do it because I'm not naturally drawn to it. I love Chassidus. And yes, when you learn Chassidus, I'll tell you a secret, okay? I'm terrible because I'm going to regret this. Wow. The Rebbe never comes to me in dreams, never. But there are people who get messages for the Rebbe for me in dreams. And I know they're true because they tell me things that they don't know about. They tell me things they don't know about. Do you understand? How could someone tell me something that the Rebbe told them they don't think about it, okay? So there's a person who's having hurried dreams from the Rebbe where the Rebbe says to that person to tell me to learn the Hayom Yom of Chof Tammuz. Did I tell this to you?
No.
The Hayom Yom of Chof Tammuz is about his bonus, about thinking Chassidus. But I must have gotten it from the Rebbe 50 times over the course of the last 6 years. It started about 6 months before COVID. The Yom of Chof Tammuz got 3 meditations. His bonus when you learn, his bonus before davening, his bonus during davening. And there was a few months that I started davening by Riches every day, and I just didn't have the koyach to do it. Anyway, the messages didn't stop. And recently, I changed phones, and I probably lost it. But if I have it, I'm going to read you words. Now, you could laugh all you want, but I don't care. Okay, because, no, I don't have it here. On my old phone, I have it. This girl, the Rebbe said to me, you have to learn Chassidus every day. It refines your mind, and it uplifts your soul. I'm not saying it word for word. And the Rebbe demands it. How could you not find time for it? And then the Rebbe, Yosef Yitzchak, Bracha V'Atzlacha. This was the message. That you learn Chassidus every day. So it hit me that when the Rebbe told me 5 years ago in a dream, but maybe 50 times that I have to do the Yom Chof Tammuz, and I thought that meant I should daven for 3 hours a day. I can't do it. I should push on Chassidus every day. Now understand, I make a living teaching Chassidus. I make a living teaching Chassidus. And in days I don't teach here, I sit in my basement and I record my modem. I'm a workaholic. I don't stop. The Rebbe wants me to learn Chassidus for me. Yeah, you see this envelope? This is a different Maimer than the one I'm teaching you. This is the Maimer that I'm learning today. Maimer. The Rebbe said to me through a shliach, learn Chassidus. And I know for a fact, I don't do it every day. But I tell people, when I learn a Maimer Chassidus, I have more hours in my day. Now, it doesn't make sense. If I learn a Maimer Chassidus takes an hour or two. So if I learned the Maimer, I lost. But the reality is that when I learn Chassidus, I'm up and have a better day. I don't waste as much time. My big challenge is not to waste time, and I waste time primarily because I get tired, and then I just let things slip. You have to help up. You have to use your time maximally. Yeah. So learn. I know exactly what this means. Learning Chassidus lifts you up, but you can't get away without a skafia. In other words, a skafia means you have to watch your mouth. It's much what you say, what goes into your mouth, what comes out of your mouth. I need to tell you what a skafia is. So the Rebbe is not saying just learn Chassidus and all your problems will be solved. You're not Yankov Avinu. But you should also know the value of Limud Chassidus. That's what the Rebbe is saying. Let's go. Perek Ches. V'yesh Shloimer. Okay, do you remember the last few lines? Let's go back to Zion, last 3 lines. Avo B'Klolos. You see Avo B'Klolos? I think I did Avo B'Klolos 3 times already. Even though in the previous Perek we talk about 4 different things, how each one both has the Machon and Shalom, Nigla, Chassidus, Chumash, and the Teresh B'Ksav of Chassidus, which is Tanya. In general, Nigla the Teirah Shayachas Levirudim. Nigla is fixing the Torah, fixing the world by engaging with the world, because it's ba'ofen the Islapshus. You actually talk about the good and the bad in the world. Upnimiyas HaTeirah and Chassidus is Ilana, the Chaya, the tree of life, that speaks about spiritual things on a level which is above the battle. Shalamayla, Ma'inyin Habirudim, it's above the place where to fix the world. Vahabirur, when one corrects the world through Torah, and specifically Chassidus, it's Shalei B'derech HaSlapshus. Torah lifts you up. Chassidus lifts you up. There's no doubt. A person learns Chassidus. I told you the story with this guy Romani. I told you the story with Naftali Berg. I told you the story, right? Yeah. That he had to do a lie detector test. And he learned Chassidus 5-6 hours in a row to calm himself down. That when he does the test, it shouldn't show nerves. Because, you're taking a lie detector test, it automatically can't work because you're so nervous. So the way they do it is they ask you regular questions, and then they ask you the questions they want to ask you. And they judge not nerves against calm. They judge nerves against nerves. Were you the same nervous or different nervous? So first they ask you regular questions like what's your name and how old you are, and they see how nervous you get. Then they ask you the questions they want to get. If you get equally nervous, then you're telling the truth. If you get different nervous, then you're lying. That's how it works. You have to calm down. Chassidus is mevadeh the world b'derech eid. Let's read it. V'yesh shloim, as the Rebbe even more. The K'mei Shabir, the Yankev, we talked about Yankov Avinu. The Yankov Avinu's whole life was being mevadeh the world b'derech eid from the top down. Now, girls, there's 2 points. What are the 2 points? Who remembers?
The way he did it.
Huh?
The way he did it and the order.
The way he did it and the order that he did it. Oifan Habirur and Seder Habirur. Young lady, look in Perek Ches, the 3rd line from the end. Oifen Habirur, and then 2 lines from the end, the first word, Seder Habirur. Thank you very much. Good for you. The way he did Birur was by shining light, and the order of the Birur was he fixed the higher things first, and then the lower things last. We fix things by getting involved with them. We have to fight with them, and we fix the lowest things first. But Yankov Avinu was opposite in both ways. Oifen Habirur and Seder Habirur. The way he does Birur is he shines light. And the order of Birur is he fixes love on before Asa, the higher thing first. Says the Rebbe, the K'mei Shabir, the Yankov, just like when Yankov Avinu shines a light into the world and he uplifts it. Yankov Avinu's relationship with the world is he's above it. And he shines light into it and uplifts it. Parenthesis, Al Yedei Gili Eid Elyon, by shining a higher light. Says the Hey Lekerebe Hayagam Bahaseder. It wasn't just oifen, but seder. The 2 Hebrew words that you need And if you want to write them down on the margin, please do. Oifen means the way, and Seder means the sequence, the order. Oifen means how did he fix the world by shining light. Seder means what part of the world did he fix first? The highest part. So the two Hebrew words are Oifen, Aleph, Vav, Pei, Langenun, and Seder, Samach, Dalid, Reish. Hoyagam, Bahaseder, de Milmailo, Lamata, the way he fixes the world from the top down. Shebiror HaGimel Rishonis, the first in the Yankov elevates is his brain. Chochma Bina Vadas, Gimel Reish, Gimel Rishonis, the first three Sfiras, which in Kabbalah would be Keser, Chochma, and Bina. And Chassidus would be Chochma, Bina, Das. Don't ask me why. Lifnei Shebiror HaMidas, before he elevates his emotions. Yankov first fixes his brain, and then he fixes his heart. Now, think about it. What's easier to fix, your brain or your heart? Huh? The brain's not a problem. The heart's a problem. Because the heart gets excited, you can't stop it. The train runs out of the station and you can't slow it down. Can't turn it off. Huh? But the emes is faked. Your emotions take you over, right? But imagine having such a refined brain that if something is against Torah, you can't understand it. Imagine you fix your brain, if someone explains something to you and says, no, but you don't need the Eibishter for this, it doesn't make sense to you. That's called Bira Machon. You refine your brain that your brain thinks like Torah does. It seems easier to correct the brain because the brain is unemotional. But the brain is also cold. And because the brain is cold, the brain can understand the biggest apocalypse and not get nervous. For a person to fix his brain, that his brain should think what the Eibishter wants the brain to think is actually deeper than correcting the emotion, even though it doesn't seem that way. And Yankov first fixes his brain, and then he fixes his heart. Continues the Lubavitcher Rebbe, and he says, Al derech zehu, the same with Rabbi Yossi, gam bepnimius haTorah, when you and I learn Chassidus. Number one, Daidei limud haChassidus ba'avana v'asaga. We learn Chassidus Chabad. And we understand it. And girls, I don't know how to tell this to you, but we don't understand the greatness of the gift of Chassidus Chabad. We don't understand. We live in it. We don't appreciate what that Abayim gave the Torah world, what they gave the Jewish people. Chassidus Chabad brought Kabbalah, Seidus HaTorah, and more to a level where anybody who wants can mamish understand. And it's a gift that keeps on giving. It's an incredible gift. The seven Abayim in their Torah gave us tools to understand secrets that until then nobody could understand unless you had a holy soul, that an ordinary person with an ordinary brain could understand it. So says the Rebbe, first of all, the first part of you that you refine is your mind. Second of all, you also refine the animal soul, but it's from the top down. In other words, when we do what Yankov does, we're similar to Yankov in both ways. First of all, when you learn Chassidus, it has a positive effect on your thinking and how your brain operates. And ultimately, it trickles down to your feelings and how your heart and your impulse operate. And he explains, give me a minute or two or three. Koilogam, this means also, Hamoichin shalamayla mishayches lamidas, the levels of the brain that are above the heart, above a relationship with the heart. I mentioned this to you in an earlier class, and the Rebbe spoke about this in Nun Beis. The Rebbe spoke about this, I think it's Lech Lecha, where the Rebbe said that before Mashiach comes, our job is to fix our heart and the part of the brain which is connected to the heart. In other words, you learn ideas in Chassidus to develop feelings in the heart. It's called Moichen Ashachal Amidus, but there's something called Moichen Beyetzim. The ideas of the brain which have nothing to do with the heart, and this is not till Mashiach comes. In Tafshin and Beis, the Rebbe said, we're holding by this also. And the Rebbe connected it specifically to the Chassidus of the Middle Rebbe. That the Middle Chassidus is like Mashiach. It's pure Seichel, pure Moichen. And that's when they started a whole movement. The people started learning the Middle Rebbe's Chassidus, Shadi Yichud, and other things, because the Rebbe called it Moichen B'yetzim. To elevate your brain, not the part of your brain which is going to affect your heart, but the part of the brain which is removed from your heart. I'll get to your question in a minute. When a person elevates himself through learning nigla, even though nigla is also by shining a light, it's be'iker, it's primarily, first of all, ba'amidas. When you learn nigla the Torah, it finds your emotions, right? When nigla the Torah talks to you about lying and cheating and stealing and holding grudges and all the rest, it's mavada your midas. Uba hamoichin, perhaps nigla refines your mind, but it's only moichin hashayochem lamidus, the parts of your brain which are connected to your feelings. When one studies pnimius hatayra, and girls in our generations, pnimius hatayra chassidus, and you're learning about Chassidus, and you're learning about eating safe. I do this for a living. I teach Chassidus. I teach it to the Bachar. We learn about eating safe. We talk about how you can spend 1,000 hours talking about godliness. Godliness in Hebrew is eating safe. And when you're done, you say, so what is godliness? Well, you never really understand, but you come closer and closer to having a sense of what a lakus is. That refines your mind. Says the Rebbe Mekivon, Chi Mitzvah, Ramav Anasa. Remember that? Since Chassidus is a very high mitzvah, in English it's exalted and elevated, which no one knows what it means. Mitzvah atzma by itself. Higher than the level that it brings you to a whole heart. The whole heart is ready intellect connected to emotions. But mitzvah ramav, when you study, I told this to you in class, the Rebbe holds that the Alter Rebbe is paskening. Yediyah Seder Ishtalshlus is Achtas Hashem. When you learn about Seder Ishtalshlus, you're fulfilling the mitzvah Sasei Deiraisa of knowing God. Yediyah, you have to know Hashem. Learning Kabbalah and understanding Svidis and Elames is Yediyah Hashem. And on the higher level, it's about the brain only. And on the lower level, it's the brain which is connected to the heart. And in the quote from the Kuntas Achadet, if you remember the class, Mitzvah Ramav Anasa is the brain by itself, and Mevir the Lev Shom, that it fixes your heart, is the part of the brain which is connected to the heart. Says the Rebbe Nasa Habir Gam Betzma Meichin. When you learn Chassidus, it's Torah and it's light and it lifts you up, but it doesn't only lift up the part of your brain which is connected to your heart. It lifts up the part of your brain which is completely moved from the heart. The finest part of your mind is refined from the top down by learning Chassidus. Your question. Go.
Yeah, we're saying that learning Chassidus refines you from the top down because it shines a higher light.
Right.
And we're also saying that it's a lot easier to refine your brain because it comes before refining your heart.
No. Who said it's easier? You see, it's not easier. It's just Yankov's approach. Yankov shines light into the world. Correct?
Isn't that the whole approach of my Ashtal? At first you change your, it's not easy to change your mind to change your heart.
I'm going to answer your question with a question. But you realize I already spoke about this today and you must have tuned me out. Does your mayach need bira b'chlal? Does your brain need to be fixed? What's wrong with your brain?
It doesn't think the right way.
Huh?
It doesn't think the right way.
Why doesn't your brain think the right way?
Have you to her?
That's your heart.
Okay.
So I'll ask you the question again. Does your brain need fixing? Hello, one at a time. I'm sorry?
I guess not.
You guess not. So why does it ever talk about bira and mayachin? The answer is your brain needs fixing. But the fixing of the brain is so idle, you don't even see the problem. Yeah? How many times have you heard people say, it doesn't make sense, I don't understand it? Now, sometimes they say it doesn't make sense and they don't understand it because the taka doesn't make sense, the taka don't understand it. And sometimes they don't because of their conditioning. If people have a background and the use of their mind, they can bring their mind to a place where you will say something completely logical and they'll say, I don't understand what you said. And it'll be true because they've refined their mind to think in the kind of way that this is just false. So imagine conditioning your mind that any idea, just for the sake of this conversation, is predicated on the idea, as the physicists used to say in the 19th century. This is a famous quote from a famous biologist: in my model, there's no need for God. You can explain the universe without God. That's what every scientist does. That's what every physicist does. Every biologist does. And you come along and say, I don't understand. So what don't you understand? It makes complete sense. No, it doesn't. It doesn't, because if there's no trigger, there's no beginning, it can't be. He said, look, we have it all figured out. It's all explained. Birat HaMoichin is a very fine idea. Because it's not about Yetzer Hara. It's not about right and wrong in the animal sense, in the emotional sense. It's about right and wrong in the intuitive sense. It's about right and wrong in the sense of the way Chassidus would say it. The beginning of the brain is the soul. The beginning of the seichel is the neshama. The neshama is keket Hashem. So if your neshama and your brain are connected, if you take God out of an equation, it stops making sense. Birat HaMochen is not easy in Birat HaMidas. If it were, we'd be doing it now. It's just, it seems easier because the brain doesn't fight with us. The brain is not emotional. The brain doesn't have an impulse. When the brain gets turned on, he doesn't lose control. Like the animal does, like the heart does. But there is such a thing as Birat HaMochen. The chiddush is that even though Birat HaMochen is a very edel thing, you do it first, just like Yankov Avinu. Because since we're modeling ourselves after Yankov Avinu, we're modeling ourselves after Yankov Avinu in both aspects, Oifen and Seder. You do it like Yankov Avinu by shining a light. You do it like Yankov Avinu, you start with the top, even though it's not easier, it's very fine.
I would think it would be the opposite. That if you're doing something with the top down because it's a powerful light, you should do what doesn't seem easier first. Wouldn't it be so much more powerful?
I appreciate that. But this question you should have asked when we learned to be Yankov Avinu.
Yeah, I asked them that.
And what did I tell you?
I don't think I was satisfied with my answer because I'm still not satisfied now.
So you really mean it. You mamish want to understand. Oh, I'm in trouble. Okay.
I can tell you what you answered then.
Okay, what did I answer then?
That Lavan was.
Do you know how lucky I am to have such students? Do you know how lucky I am?
That Lavan was.
That was a compliment.
That Lavan was because he was like a trickster. Even though he looks like he was a higher klipa, actually came from a much yuckier place.
That's not what the Maimon says. The Maimon says he's a higher klipa. What I told you is a yuckier place.
Not yuckier.
I love the word yucky. It's my favorite word. Look out the window. That's what yucky looks like. That sky, that's yucky.
The whole like Chachma level was that he was a trickster. So he looks high, but really it was like that a higher place of klipa really means that it's lower.
Like you said that like the low is like of course it's like you see Asaph, it's like so obvious how like low of a person is. It's like a place.
So that's how I explain how you fix Lavan in 20 years and Asaph in one day. But the fact that you do Lavan first.
You said it because since Yankov is like in a different level, he does Lavan first because it's a more angular clip, so it's like harder to find.
So her question is, why are you starting with the harder? Start with the easier.
No, we are starting with
It starts
the
with
more shy.
whatever is closer to him. No, you start figurative whatever is closer to him.
Because you know, if he's higher, then he's closer to the top, and if he goes for the top,
Then we'll start with more fine starts like that.
Wait, is the question why is it harder or why are we not starting with the easier?
my question is, if your Hamaichim has to come before your Hamidas, then wouldn't the power be
The Birat HaMochen has to come before the Birat HaMidas if you're Yankov Avinu.
How can we do Bir Hamidas before we get Bir Hamaichim?
Yeah, that.
We all do that. Are you kidding? I mean, I don't know you, so I don't want to start up with you. Fighting with the Yetzer Hara is Birat HaMidas. We never get to Birat HaMochen.
But we have to work with them, right?
I know, but that's the same thing as Birat HaMochen. Look at the next words in the Maimed. Hagam shakivu shekeni knidi v'kadmoini etzem moichen shalomaylu midas yeh rak la'asad loveh. Birat HaMochen is a very sensitive subject. We're doing something that we have no business doing because it is business of learning from Yankov Avinu. Birat HaMochen is a very edel thing. According to Chassidus, classically, it's going to be after Mashiach comes.
It's not even something we're supposed to attempt.
I can't hear you.
It's not even something we're supposed to attempt.
Right, and yet, when we're learning Pnimiyas HaTorah, we're modeling ourselves after Yankov Avinu. So in some small way, first of all, we're being Mevaded Mechin also, and second of all, being Mevaded Mechin first. So one second, so what is your question?
Why can't Chassidus just be so powerful that like it's Mavari and Hamidas right away? You don't have to deal with it.
Because he gave us a massive Yetzer Hara and a teeny tiny puny little brain.
So shouldn't Chassidus be so powerful because it's so high and it's so much highlighted, it's no violent concept that it just lasts. Anyway.
Now you're imagining the movie that you're going to make. This is Avodas Hashem, lady. It was never meant to be easy. We're all in a different place. We all have a different personal struggle. The Eibush doesn't make it easy. He makes it possible. Karev elecha doesn't mean kal. Near. And the way he conditioned us, we're simple people. We're behemoths, right? We have a nice word for them called beinani, but you know we feel about that. We struggle with the Yetzer Hara. Bidei Machon is a madrega for big tzaddikim. Chassidus is saying that there's a piece of us, just a piece of us, not all day and all night, that allows us to imitate Yankov's avodah, and when we're doing that, we're doing things the way he did it. It's not our regular life.
It doesn't affect the regular life at
Oh,
all.
of course it does. But it's not enough. It's not nearly enough. If a person, you know what it says in my Marech Chassidus, and I know this myself, if a person learns Chassidus, and has a geschmack in Chassidus, and loves it, but he doesn't work on himself, 10 minutes after he learns a maimer for 3 hours, he can lick an ice cream and get so much pleasure from it, it's obscene. And he becomes over it in a second, grub. You know why? Because the whole Chassidus was a taiva. The whole Chassidus was a taiva. What makes the Chassidus emes is the iskafia.
So Chassidus is like Avodas Hatzadikim in a way.
Chassidus is oir that accompanies iskafia. To use the language of the Kuntis Eitz HaChaim, it's the Yechudi law that accompanies the Yechudi Torah. But you can't skip Yechudi Torah. You have to Yechudi Torah. That's your life.
Okay, so can I?
So my fight with my Yetzer Hara, that's my life. There's also an inyan of oir, which has a lot of benefits in my life, but it never takes the place of the fight. These person stops fighting, they lose. You see it every day. The Maimed is saying that there is a place for this oir, but it's not taking over the basic struggle of the ordinary person's life. No way.
Could I say that it's Avodas Hatzadikim?
It's the avoid of Yankov Avinu that we're imitating. Is Yankov Avinu a tzaddik?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's completely. It only works if you are already you. I guess I've done that. I've done thinking.
Or you were not given the test. Or you were not given the
That's
test.
Avodas Hatzadikim.
Yeah, okay, fine. You want me to say yes? I don't want to say yes, but yeah, I'll say yes. Whatever you want. What's your next question? Let's go. Let's not waste time. What's your next question? You had a question, a fundamental question that I didn't answer.
I think it was answered.
No, it wasn't. Why is a tzaddik being mevader from the top down and not the bottom up? That's the question. It's a really legitimate question.
Okay, but I think my question was that if being Gemara in Midas is so much harder, why can't this just do that for you? And my answer is that it doesn't even touch it.
Bevir Amitis is easy. It's as much as a struggle as it is. It's actually easier than the Bidei Machon.
Right, it's something that we're not even supposed to attempt, but when it comes to this is the gift that we would attempt it.
Yeah, but the Rebbe is saying that we should attempt it.
We should?
Yeah.
Right, because
But it shouldn't define our whole being. It's just a part of who we are.
Right, because it only works if you work in yourself. Am I understanding correctly?
No. They're separate. They're separate. That's the chiddush. The average human being in his or her life either lives like an animal or tries to refine the animal to become a person. If you live like an animal, then you don't need a maimed. For that, you can read the newspaper. Yeah. If you want to become a shtickle mensch, you have to fight with your midas reis. You have to overcome your bad habits. You have to overcome your bad midas. That's a war. This is not a war. This is very beautiful. It's very peaceful. And the Rebbe says, do it. It doesn't take away from the war. It's a different part of your life that you have because Yankov Avinu's story is written in the Chumash. Do the two affect each other? Of course they do. But the Rebbe is saying that there is a place for this. If you do only this, you'll be in bad trouble. But there's a place for this. That's what the Rebbe is saying. I don't think it's only to enhance the Milchama. It's to lift you up. But your question has not been answered. At least not to my satisfaction.
Can you explain again?
Why is Yankov elevating the highest klipa first and the lower klipa? Shouldn't elevate the bottom one first?
That's still not answered.
Do you feel like it's answered?
No, I feel like it's answered in my personal life. I feel like the Nimshal is answered, not mine.
Oh, fine. Right. In our personal life, it's answered. But in Yigoyin, why is that the Seder?
Like, I feel like I can do that too. I can have an easier people first.
Not easier.
It's not an easier klipa, it's a finer klipa.
But it's still easier to refine.
No, it's easier to fool yourself into thinking it's not a problem.
Yeah.
He's easier to fool yourself into thinking it's not a problem.
See, but if you stop fooling yourself, then it should be easier to refine.
It's not so, but okay.
I'm not stopping anyone.
You stole my time. I got the ganze Plan.
Could you give another example?
Let me give you an example, okay? I'm gonna give you an example, okay? It's one of my favorite Gemaras. It really is one of my favorite Gemaras. And this Gemara, for those of you who understand biology and chemistry and physics, and you enjoy it, this Gemara is a punch in the face to the way science studies and understands the world. It's based on a pasuk in Bereshis, Vayitzer Hashem Elokim es Adam, whatever it is. And the Gemara says, from this pasuk we learn, Tzor Tzura B'toich Tzura. Hashem makes a form inside a form. What does that mean? Practically. When the Eibishter made a person, he made the whole person. He filled in the plumbing later. When the Eibishter made a fish, he made a whole fish. He filled in the plumbing later. When the Eibishter made a bird, he made a whole bird. He filled in the plumbing later. When the Eibishter made a reptile and an amphibian and a mammal, he made the outer crust first and he filled in the plumbing later. Okay, now, any person who studied biology knows that they assume from the micro to the macro. First, it was a teeny tiny little cell. Then it became bigger. It became more. So when they look at the biology of different living creatures, they all go from the small to the big. They even talk about the fact that a single cell having a mitochondria is considered a cell within a cell, based on what they call evolution. Okay? But in their mind, if you have two animals that look exactly alike, but one of them is a marsupial, you know what a marsupial is? Marsupial means a mammal that doesn't have a placenta, that can't keep the babies in their uterus. So the babies are born very prematurely and then they grow in a pouch. They live mostly in Australia. And you have an identical animal that's a mammal, a mouse and a marsupial mouse. To them, they're biologically completely dissimilar. There's nothing in common. Why? Because from the evolutionary point of view, they were separated 400 million years ago. Whatever. Taylor says it's the same animal because it looks the same. Yeah, but the plumbing is different. Taylor says the plumbing came second. Ask you a funny question. A whale is a fish or not?
No.
Api Torah.
Yes.
Yeah. A bat is a bird or not? According to Torah.
Yes.
You know why? Because we look at the chitzonius.
So mammals are not a thing.
Torah looks at the chitzonius. Science looks at the pnimius. Doesn't that make science higher than Torah? What's the teretz? The Eibishter made the finished product first, and then he filled in the plumbing after. I believe that a whale is a fish, a pialocha. Now, it doesn't have fins and scales, it's teif. Now, whales are mammals. They have live young. They nurse their young. They control their body temperature. I mean, so, Torah's perspective on what an animal is what you see in the end. Why? Because that was what he wanted. That's what he wanted. It's not a contradiction. Science is explaining to you the physiology of it, and Torah is explaining to you the end of it, the point of it. And oftentimes, the end of something and the process of something are opposites. I have many theories about this. That's what they are. There are theories about this. But the way Torah looks at living creatures is in so many ways quite different than science does because of this foundational idea. Torah says the Eibishter made what you see. The details came later. Okay, so you can give many, many examples for this. I gave you a few, okay? Now, to a scientist, the important thing is the building blocks, the steps, right? To Torah, the important thing is the point. And those two things clash. The scientist looks at the process. I talk about the Chamisha B'Shvat. You ask a scientist, why are fruit beautiful and sweet and tasty? Because they have a pit inside and they want to plant a seed and grow another tree. You ask Torah, why is a fruit beautiful and sweet and tastes and smells good? Because the person's supposed to enjoy it. Now, who's right? One is talking about the biology, the process of sustaining it physically, and the other is saying, why did Hashem make it? Now, the truth of the matter is, why Hashem made it is far more important than those little details. But it's two different worlds. Okay, now let's see if we can apply that to our question. A person has to elevate the world, right? Why? Because the world's a problem. Because the world's a problem, yeah? Or, a person has to elevate the world. Why? Because this is what the Eibishter wants. Are those two things synonyms?
Yeah.
I have to elevate the world because the world is a problem. I have to elevate the world because Hashem wants the world elevated. Now,
It's the same goal.
Yeah.
It's not
the same goal, but it's not the same order. If the world is a problem to me, I gotta deal with my problems.
Saying first Hashem wants
If the world is not a problem to me, I gotta deal with the point and the purpose.
Why are we making the world a problem? Why don't we just skip that?
Did you ever walk and suddenly fall and trip by mistake? Did it ever happen to you?
We could try.
That means it never happened to you? Have you watched it happen to other people?
Yeah.
Why did they trip and fall? Why didn't they skip the problem? Oh, they're idiots, they're clumsy. Because we're all not perfect. The biggest mistake we could make is skip us problems. Because they don't go away. One of the smartest things somebody told me in my life was, when you turn your back on a person, they don't disappear. When you turn your back on a problem, it doesn't go away. If you have a leaking pipe and you say, okay, I'll worry about it next week, it's still leaking. And our lives are that. It's called Yetzer Hara. What comes from Yetzer Hara? I don't know you. Maybe you're tzaddikus, but laziness, bad habits, anger, jealousy, paranoia. These are real issues. You can't ignore them. If you're going to skip those problems, you're going to end up tripping and falling in the worst time, in the wrong place, in the worst place in front of the wrong people. Why? Because you ignored your challenges. So you're dealing with these problems because they're your problems. Now, is the purpose of life to one of my favorite pet peeves, is the purpose of life to sit in the psychologist's chair all day and all night? No. The purpose of life is to live and to be happy, to serve the Eibishter. Why do you go to a psychologist? Because I can't live my life. I have to solve this problem so I can live my life. You can't skip. What if you don't have problems? What if you don't have problems? Then you solve the problems of the world based on what's the world's purpose. That's Yankov Avinu.
So for a tzaddik, the world doesn't actually pose a problem because it's because Hashem like.
For a tzaddik, the world doesn't pose a problem for him personally.
Oh, so it's an issue because it's Hashem has an issue.
That's right.
Okay.
He's not involved.
It's not his problem. It's the Eibishter's. It's our problem.
But shouldn't we do things with that mentality?
Right. Plus, you're like, I'm feel the whole like, shouldn't we?
The biggest mistake a person could make is be dishonest about his dark side.
Not that a person doesn't know that they have issues, but know, like, I'm doing this for my Avodas Hashem, or I'm doing this because Hashem.
You know what? That's pshat in this Pedic.
Yeah.
That's the pshat of this Maimed.
It's very dangerous.
But don't get carried away. Don't forget the everyday struggles of life. You could say that that's exactly what this Pedic is saying. And I told you this 3 times, or 4 times, or 5 times. The Rebbe Rashab has a kuntas called Eitz Achai, which the Rebbe handed me himself with Yadi Agadesha. And like I told you, I decided that if the Rebbe gives me a kuntas, I should probably learn it. And I learned it from one cover to the other cover. The whole point of that kuntas is why are we learning in Yonim Chassidus that we can't bring into our avodah life. And his answer is to support our avodah life, but not to replace it. So I'm answering you. When the girls are late in the notes at the end of the year, Paltiel goes too slowly, you should answer fewer questions. I'm going to think of this class. And the last one, the one before that, you were saying.
No, that Machon really clarifies it. Like, basically, we're because tzaddikim don't have a self to get over almost, like, to work on it in a sense, they're able to just start right away.
They're doing the purpose.
Right.
Not to get the stuff out of the way that gets them to the purpose. They're doing the purpose. And the purpose is, the first beat it is the edelste klippe. I don't know if that's true. I don't know, but I think it's insight. This Gemara, I love this Gemara. When the Eibishter made living things, he made them the way you see him. He didn't make the plumbing. He made them the way you see him. He filled in the plumbing later. So the chitzonius, the ketsura of an animal, a pi Torah, tells you a lot about that animal. So two animals whose plumbing is very different, if on the outside they're very dissimilar, that means they're dissimilar. Because Torah has a different perspective than biology. And Torah's emes. It's a different emes. You were going to say.
How does shluchas come in when like we're not like we're going out there and we're not just like, oh, we have to learn and
There's a one-word answer to that question, and
Right.
basically to your whole life. It's called the Rebbe. The Rebbe. The Rebbe. Get two choices. To get on the wagon or to get on the wagon. Once you get on the wagon, there's different rules. Ooh, it's a whole nother story. He's on the ball, the Rebbe. He's okay. He takes care of us. Let's finish the paragraph, huh? I'll read I'm not going to finish, but I'll read a little bit more. I'm on page Kuf Tzadik Hey, middle paragraph, 8 lines down. V'hagam, and even though Shakivush, the conquest of Kaini, Knidi, Kadmoni, the last 3 lands of the 10 lands of Eretz Yisrael, which represents Kabbalistically Etzem HaMoichin Shalamayla Me'amidis, the levels of the mind which are completely removed from the heart. Yirak Love will only fix when Mashiach comes. So how are we? Not only we're Mavada HaMoichin Be'etzem, we're Mavada HaMoichin Be'etzem first. When we're learning Chassidus, it's none of our business.
Are we though?
That's what in a small way. We're not only doing the avodah of Yankov Avinu, we're doing the avodah of Yankov Avinu also. And when we're doing the avodah of Yankov Avinu also, we're doing this in that order. 1 second. Mikol Makom Yirak LaAsad Lavi is only going to happen when Mashiach comes. LaAcharei Shleimas Habider, because first you have to fix completely Hamidos, the animal soul. V'amoich and Hashachal Lamidus, and the brain which is close to the mind, to the heart. Says the Rebbe Komakam, still me'ein zehu gam achshav. There's something like it now as well. When we're learning Chassidus, when we're imitating Yankov Avinu, we're engaging with the finest parts of ourselves and elevating them the way Yankov Avinu would from the top down. By starting Pnimius HaTorah. Can I have 60 seconds more? V'zehu masha besupa b'Torah. That's what it tells us. 2 things. Circle this word. Oifen habirur the Yankiv, the way Yankov does birur. Aydei giri edim shining a light. The gam, now circle the next word. Seder habirur, the sequence of the birur. Shehizcho ba'habirur the gimel rishonos. Yankov begins by elevating the highest thing first. B'kushnei and yonim el. These 2 ideas. And Yechola and Yonim Shabbatera, the Rebbe goes back to his favorite word, Teira Milosh Neira. Yankov Avinu was in another universe, but if his story is written in the Chumash, we got to imitate his avodah as well. Hayrois, Nitzches, eternal lessons from Yankov's life. Gam Achshav. Now also canals to Sucker 4. I hope it's clear. I will